All right, welcome to Heart of the Matter. I'm your host, Matt Hartnett. Thanks for joining me as I got another great episode here around the rock and metal discussions with the ever so crazy music business. We're coming at you once again this week. And joining me today, we got my former co-host of Aftershocks TV, the Irish intellect of metal. That's what I'm going to start calling you. You know, Bob was the Armenian maven of metal. You're the Irish intellect of metal. So, or Irish intellectual. Maybe that's better since it's his name.
No,
Yeah, Irish
intellectual and Tom Brennan has never been mentioned in the same word ever, same sentence ever. I'll take it, man. I'll take it.
We're going to find out tonight, Tom, right? We're going to find out your intellect on metal, man. So, yeah, good to see you, Tom, man. How you been, bud?
Yeah, listen, good, man. You know, just living life, doing my thing, and, you know, doing the best I can. Hey, listen, I picked up Death Angel tickets today, so that's a good day when you pick up Death Angel and Violence coming to Charlotte in May next year. So Act 3 coming my way.
Very cool, man. Well, yeah, man. We're gonna put some thrash metal on the burner today. We're gonna actually dig in. We're gonna dig into some classic records and some some classic metal discussion. Mostly going back to the early mid, the late 80s. It's pretty much a metal's 80s sort of round of episodes we're going to be doing here. What we're going to be doing, we're going to start off here with our vintage standard. We did those vintage standard episodes, Tom, as you remember, me, you, and Chris as well. Did those a couple of years ago when Aftershocks, towards the end of the run of Aftershocks. We got a lot of good feedback on that, and I really enjoyed doing those. So we're going to do another round of those. And today, we're going to do two of them, and we're going to start here with an album that, we're going to get into it here. This is an album, man, just blows me away. I love this record, and I think it's criminally underrated, not just record, but band overall. We're talking about RIOT, and we're talking about the pinnacle of their, I think, career. I don't want to say pinnacle of their career, but definitely the highlight of their career in terms of their records, which is, of course, Fire Down Under. And I'll throw in some facts here for for everyone before we get rolling. But obviously it came out on Elektra in 1981. Actually, both records we're doing today are going to be 1981 record. And that wasn't done purposely; it just sort of happened that way. But yeah, it was the band's. They're from New York. It was their third studio record. Did go gold here in the States, so it did pretty well. It was the last one to feature their original vocalist Guy Speranza, who a lot of people, I think so, was their best vocalist. And they went through, they had a lot of band members. We'll get into that a little bit. But yeah, it was started in 1975, this band, by, I think, a guitarist that really just gets, you'd never hear about this guy. And he's an amazing guy, Mark Reale. Phenomenal guitarist, man. So yeah, what's your take with RIOT? How much do you know about RIOT and their history? Because they are one of those bands that's been way under the radar, yet musically they're up there with the top, man. They're up there with the best of them. I really believe so.
Well, you know what, Matt, they're still under the radar, even though we're still talking about them, and that record was released, all those years ago in like early 1980s. But like, I got into rock metal 1980, 81-ish, so around the time this came out. But it was like the tradition. I lived in Europe and Ireland at the time, so it was like Saxon and Maiden and Thin Lizzy were kind of on their way out at that point. And I was getting into some early 70s Deep Purple, whatever. And I started buying Kerrang magazine. Everybody knows, Bob has spoken about this ad nauseum. We had Richie on for Focus on Metal or whatever. Kerrang was the Bible. Like, if Kerrang said something was good, it was good. If Kerrang said something was shit, it was shit. It was like, that was it, right? That was the only way you knew about it. And then you bought albums accordingly. But I don't remember really I remember hearing about RIOT, and you'd see Lars or Steve Harris talking about them, like in magazines and interviews or whatever. And it was years later, I said, I got to go back and see, like, who the fuck are these guys? And this was like years later. At this point, I was kind of my metal credit being built up, and I had a couple of hundred tapes, albums, aging myself now. I would have been 11, 12 when this came out. But, the thing about this album is how incredibly well it's aged. I was listening to it, obviously, in a little bit of homework for this, but I listened to it again tonight, just for a few moments coming back from somewhere. And I was still rocking out to it. It's not of its time. It's ahead of its time. And yet today this band is still under the radar. It's just a phenomenal album. We could do a whole session on this here tonight.
Yeah, I know, it really is, man. I agree. And like you said, listen, it's such a good album that this thing has been released. This record has been re-released, I should say. 4 different times over the years.
Yeah, Rock Candy were in there, I think, at some point.
Yeah, 2018. And yeah, and I know you're talking about, over in Europe. I mean, yeah, it was really I saw this video on the band today. I tell you, this band, you could do a whole this
Right.
band really deserves a documentary. I mean, it really does, not just because of, they were underrated. It's just,
Yeah.
and we're going to get into it here. Just basically just how the trajectory of the career went, and just I mean, like we said, this thing has been re-released 4 times. Like you said, Rock Candy in 2018,
Yeah.
and they were bigger. They really kicked the band kicked in gear when they were going over to Europe and to the UK.
Yeah.
That's what really embraced them first before they got bigger here in the US.
Right.
But it was, now this record in particular originally was recorded for Capitol Records. They put out, I think, their second album, Narita, which is another really awesome record too.
Yeah.
But Capitol dropped them because this album was too heavy.
I read that today. I knew that, but I read it today. It was good. Fucking hell.
Yeah.
Damn.
I mean, yeah. I mean, and I remember, like I said, I'm 50 years old now. I really didn't find out too much about Riot because they're so under the radar. And look, I've been, diehard rock and metal fan for years, but I really didn't get to know this record, I would say, till about, 13, 14 years ago. So I got to really know it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard of it a little bit before that, but yeah, it just, and a lot of it, at least here in the States, it did get an extra boost from guys like Eddie Trunk, from the, Jim Florentine would play them on his show on Sirius XM. Sirius XM really also played a couple other Riot songs, which really got me into the band, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, man, well, I mean, like I said, first of all, one of the things, you can see the album cover right there below on the title there. Like everyone says, one of the things that I think held the band, well, this album back, let's just start with this album instead of the band, was that album cover. It's atrocious.
Yeah. It's like a bad Fly By Night. Like, it's just,
it's freaking terrible, man. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. I mean,
listen, it's but is it worse than Born Again? I mean, we should have a whole conversation about that's a whole other story, but it's pretty bad, right? But is it because it's so shitty that it's memorable? That's the other side of it.
Well, you're right. That could be a thing. I mean, I think it was a mascot they used, right? The seal. Called Tior. That was the name of the, I mean, and just the reason why I brought that up too is because, like I said, I did a really big, dive into these guys, and I saw this thing about one of the reasons why they didn't take off or really connect was, like we've seen a lot with bands back in the day, especially not so much anymore, but was very bad management. They had a lot of guys that, well, I should say there was 2 guys that started managing the band, and that was obviously at their peak here when they put out Fire Down Under, and they just supposedly Mark Reale was a very quiet guy, and you see that sometimes, right? It's always those kind of guys are like, look, I just want to play some music, I want to do my art. Here, I'm going to hire you guys, go ahead and take it, and go from there. And so obviously any manager that went ahead and said, this is a great idea to have the seal, Tior, as our mascot in a metal band, like, and a really heavy band at that, I mean, really had no idea what the hell they were doing. Obviously.
Yeah, that's fair. I would agree with that. I would agree with that. They kind of remind me that they're like the equivalent of a US version. And had the same impact. They're still spoken about. Obviously, John Sykes came in and a couple of years later, but early Tigers, if you listen to those riffs, like very kind of priest-driven, just straight up metal, no fucking around. And Tigers are a very influential band, spoken very fondly in the same way, if that's the right word to use, spoken fondly about, like, pioneers of early metal. They really were, with the riffs and obviously the covers and whatnot, with the Tigers and the Cage and all those albums and Wildcat. But I often wonder if a band like Riot had been from the north of England and got swept up in the new Wabba movement, would it have taken off? Because the timing was perfect, the music was perfect. It just didn't get across the ocean. It only got across the ocean a decade later. It's like watching a movie like The Shawshank Redemption. It did nothing at the time, but now it's revered, by new generations. Like we're it's 2025, 2026, dude, and we're talking about it tonight. So there was almost like it was a perfect storm in one way, badly run management, maybe bad decisions by the band, whatever. And then the fact that there was 1981 metal really wasn't where it was going to be in the next 2 or 3 years, like with Quiet Riot, Motley were coming up, and Too Fast for Love was released the same year. If this album had been released 2 years later, or we could do the what ifs all day, or if they were from the north of England, same place as Tiger or Saxon, what would have happened? They just got lost in this big ocean of what was happening, you know?
Yeah, well, and I think it's one of those unfortunate things where I also think, I mean, look, this band toured with AC/DC on the Highway to Hell tour. They've toured with Black Sabbath, and they've toured with Rush with Moving Pictures.
Yeah,
that was, and I saw that too. They were actually at one point, they were over in Europe touring, I believe it was with maybe Sabbath, and the label was like, no, you're coming back to tour with Rush with Moving Pictures. Now, I think it's more of a fit being with Sabbath than a band like Rush. I mean, the Rush crowd, I don't know how they were gonna. Sorry, this is a little too heavy for Rush, and so and also with this record now, being that it was, you know, listen, like I said, it went gold, so it was doing pretty well. I mean,
it
gold's
hit
not
57 or something in the charts. I would note there somewhere, but it hit well, like with the general public overall.
Yeah, overall, like I said, gold, but now gold though really, like I said, isn't the standard though, right? I mean, maybe if they hit gold back then, but we're talking about, I don't think it hit gold necessarily at that point. It just eventually did, you know, after you know all these years. Exactly. But so when you figure, usually when you get that first album that sells like that, so what happens is everyone can't wait for your follow up. Unfortunately, they lost some band members. Their singer, you know, left.
Yeah.
Okay. It was Guy Speranza. This was his last.
And Scott Ian tried to get him in for Anthrax. So you think about like that actually happened, I think, in '82, and he says, "No, I'm out of the business." He just didn't say no, he just said, "I'm out of the business."
Out of business. Yep.
Yeah. So and Anthrax were obviously on the cusp of greatness at that point. So, and he would have suited the music because obviously Belladonna had that high range and whatever. So that's one of those what ifs moment. But again, the band had enough notoriety that an up and coming band from New York, i.e. Anthrax, approach this guy and say, "We want you to be our new singer," because obviously there's what's the singer on the debut Anthrax album? Name escapes me. Anyway, Anyway, come back. So they were obviously going in a new direction.
Neil
there you go. That's it. Yeah. So so they were going in a new direction, but you know, Riot had enough of a fan base, and obviously the touring, you know, people could read the magazines, whatever magazines were in the US back then, that Anthrax approached him, but he said, "No, I'm out, buddy. I'm not happening."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, and we'll talk about the record here too. You know, I mean, great. I mean, Swords of Tequila. A lot of people know. Obviously, that was the biggest single, right?
Great chorus. You could sing that chorus in your head all day long.
Oh, all day. It's very catchy.
Yeah.
Like I said, Mark Realia. This guy is a phenomenal guitarist. I mean, the leads on the. I mean, that song. I'm trying. See what I liked about this record. I think what it was so Narita was excellent, but it had a lot of those 70s influences still, right? This was really like, okay, 81. For me, I think 81 is when 81 to 84 was a very special time for music. I think those 3 years, you know, we always talk about, like a lot of times back then, especially, music was sort of, they would go in cycles every 3 years where there'd be something kind of new.
Right.
This was fit perfectly in there with, you know, another album. Obviously, we're going to be talking about a little while here. But musically, I just thought it was phenomenal because it still had a little bit of the 70s influence. It just bridged the two, you know, decades together. You had sort of that proto, like you said, new wave of British heavy metal stuff, but all of a sudden now mixed sort of with the speed metal, you know, sound, which eventually became more of a power metal band later on. And my thing, I mean, some of these songs on here though were just, I mean, they blow me away. Some of the stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, you know, I could talk about these songs all day. Instead of just going track by track, I mean, I don't want to, you know, say do that, but I would just suggest to everyone, you got to check out this record. Now, just getting back, the other thing too about this band, this is how much talent they did have, was they were also on 3 major labels.
Yeah.
That's pretty for a band that never really took off and only has 1 gold record. They were on Capitol. Obviously, they got booted off there, like we just talked about. Elektra picked them up for this record. And then they also signed to CBS and Epic. So, I mean, and even in Japan, they were on Sony. It just shows you the skills that this band had. And you just, I mean, Cliff Bernstein from Q Prime, everyone knows, right? Metallica guy. He actually was going to sign them. I mean, this is how really talented and skilled this band was. And if you, like I said, if you look at just the history, we talk about bad luck. Sometimes it just happened to bands. They got the breaks with getting signed, but they either had management that screwed them.
Yeah.
Labels just didn't know how to market them and sell. I mean, again, this whole Tior thing, I just think really did not help. You're talking about metal when you had Judas Priest with their spikes and leather and what everyone else was going for, and here it is, you got Tior the Seal. It's terrible marketing, terrible, awful. It doesn't get worse than that.
No, and I think it's arguably you could say they're like a pillar of early '80s metal, because a pillar is a foundation, right? That's what it is. It's a foundation. Things get built upon that. So you just talk about the legacy of what this band was, and even you spoke about like that transition sound, like the late '70s, early '80s. I love the production on this. One of my favorite sounding sounds basically is from about 1979 to 1982. Some of the 70s, and I love 70s production, but it's of its time a little bit. I still love it, but it's of its time. From the 79 up to about 82, then before the glass kicked in 83 and onwards, we know what happened there with like the Ron Nevison's The World and that kind of production. But
Matt Mullings,
all that kind of stuff. But that was it's like they just recorded the garage in one take. That's what it sounds like. Just good musicians, just doing their shit. Okay, we good. Okay, next song, let's go. Like no fucking around. And I think that's what we're still talking about, because that sense of authenticity can still be heard on. Like I listened to it. We spoke whatever day, Wednesday. I listened to it all straight the way through. And again, I discovered, oh, damn, I forgot about that guitar riff, because we've all got so much shit going on, so much there's music going in. And just driving tonight again, almost like goosebumps. I yanked it up. I was actually coming back for this, just getting ready. And I said, damn, I can't wait to get into this one, because it's for an album that was released in 1981. I mean, think of the technology that was 81. And it still sounds this good. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it was a barn burner. And the funny thing is another thing, talking about labels, management, so forth. The labels, after this record, they wanted them to be more like Styx, Journey, and REO Speedwagon. They even wanted them to put on makeup. I mean, again, nobody got this band. And like I said, I think the reason is they were a bit ahead of their time.
Yeah.
And a lot of bands like that were ahead of their time, unfortunately, no one knows what to do with them, right? Now, eventually, when you figure you're on 3 majors, you figure one of them is going to get it right. If it isn't the first one or the second one, that third one is going to get it right. But it didn't. And then Mark Reale, he after, I think it was after the 5th album, the album, I think, got dropped. They had to independently put out the Born in America one.
Yeah.
And then he closed up shop for a bit, moved down to Texas. He teamed up with one of the guys, was his name, the bassist, who's actually, the thing was, this band, we'll talk about this in a second, they're still going. But Don Von Stavron, he's the oldest surviving member, who he was on the 6th record. Yep. So there's nobody, and we'll talk about it in a minute, but he was in that band Slayer from San Antonio, Texas, not the Slayer from LA.
Slayer. Yeah.
Yeah, so they teamed up. Obviously, the change of sound kicked in with Thundersteel, but like I said, more power metal, more speed power metal, but still pretty damn phenomenal nonetheless. I mean, a lot of people actually think that is their best era of the band. I mean, and this band put out albums nonstop for years.
They did, but when you think of, I don't think it's almost like the world wasn't ready for straight on metal. Saxon hadn't broken at that time. Maiden were still on Killers. They just weren't ready for it. I think the rock and metal fan wasn't ready for that type of music, and therefore, as a result of that, the labels and the A&R guys, they didn't know how to categorize it. Like you said, let's put on some makeup. It's like, let's put on makeup. See, does that work? I mean, like literally throwing spaghetti at the wall shit. When you look at what was happening, moving pictures, you mentioned about, obviously, Rush came out in 81. For those about, The Rock was coming out. So metal was just about to fucking explode to what this behemoth that it became. And it's almost like you'd hear some great music, some great artists that, like, you take Wing or Pull as an example. I think that was 89, 90 or whatever. That just almost like got released at the wrong time.
That was about 92, 92.
Yeah, was it? Yeah. So it's almost like it didn't fit for the year that was released in.
Totally.
And you could go down the rabbit hole of what ifs all day long, and what if they have a different producer, what ifs. But I think that's the kind of the perfect storm as to why. And honestly, it's almost like it's retained its cult classic because of those stories. that's what makes it even more special, because you can't wrap your head around it. Because when I listen to it, I go, why the fuck were these guys huge? But for all of those reasons that we're talking about is why. And maybe the album itself wouldn't have been the treasure it is today if they had gone and been more commercially successful.
Yeah, but I'm just saying right now, I could tell you, like you just said it right there. You had Iron Maiden. What was their mascot? Eddie, very metallic, very metal looking. Judas Priest, leather spikes, motorcycle on stage. What's Riot? A seal. A seal. I mean, Narita, look at the album. I mean, this is actually better. I think this album cover is better than Narita.
Yeah.
The Narita, I guess that name is like, I think an airport in Japan or something.
Yeah.
And so they have good old Tior here. I mean, I'm not even going to bring it up. Everyone could go look at that album cover. It's the most, that's even worse than this one, because he's got his head on, the seal head with a samurai, with a sumo wrestler samurai.
But yeah, like we're looking back on that now, we're kind of laughing, going, what the fuck, right? But what happened? Like, was there marketing guys in the room and said, "Hey guys, here's the cover"? Did they all go, "Yeah, that looks great. Everybody, thumbs up. Okay, let's run with that"? Who, or did they just not give a shit, or they weren't in control of the decisions? I don't know.
Well, again, I think, like, when I was digging into them, when I saw this video, little 10-minute thing on them, they talked about Mark Reale being, like I said, a very more of a quieter, reclusive guy, not the kind of guy that's going to get really into the business aspect. And so I guess back then you think, hey, we're on a major label, I'm just going to trust these guys. These guys are professionals. They know what they're doing. Now, of course, if I saw that at that time, I'd be like, whoa, what is this? What is this Tior seal thing? What is this crap? This we need to get something different. I don't know if, I mean, he just let the management do it. I don't know if it was one of those, like, well, you have no say in it type of things, but I'm telling you, that is a major, people don't understand marketing, especially back then. The
album cover was so important. Do you remember we were on with Chris and you a couple of months back, and we're talking about Mean Street, the Y&T album, and the same thing, you couldn't read. It was in kind of all those like gooey green color. You couldn't read what it said. And back then, and many times have you heard people say, I picked up the first Iron Maiden album, I had to buy it because of the cover. I picked up a Kiss album, I had to buy it because of the cover. People picked up that and said, I'm fucking not buying it because of the cover.
Exactly. Who would look at that and go, oh man, this looks, dude, I got to buy this thing. I mean, both of those albums, Narita and this, you just wouldn't, or even the ones afterwards, because this is the worst mascot ever in the history of metal. I mean,
if you're going to have a shit album cover, have it like 3 or 4 albums in when you're established. Don't do it on, like, almost like day one here. I know.
Don't. But, exactly. Don't do it while you're trying to build up your fan base.
Yeah. If you have the visuals today don't mean shit. Let's be honest about it. No, because nobody buys albums. No, CDs are gone.
Yeah.
It's all on your phone and streaming and shit. And that's a whole other discussion. But back then it was huge.
It was huge.
Do you remember Magnum? Remember the Magnum album covers? Like, I mean, and or even some of the, obviously we're talking about Maiden or whatever, they meant something. Like,
they grabbed you.
Holy shit! Like, you looked at the album cover for 10 minutes before you even flipped it around to see what was going on with the track listing or credits or whatever. And this is the opposite.
Yeah, they grabbed you. Those records, when you saw that and you were flipping through in the record store, you'd be like, whoa, what is this? Ooh,
that's part of the emotion. It was emotional. You got pulled into it. Yeah. And you never forget that. Exactly. Like, you never forget looking at those Maiden covers or Rush covers or Kiss covers or, whoever. Like, even Diary of a Madman came out the same year, the Ozzy. I'm not saying that's a great album cover, but at least it catches you. He's kind of reaching, whatever. It's kind of cheesy when you look back on it. But for its time, it was what it was. It was a catching cover. If you're just doing the good old album flick and you're just going through, you're going to stop at that. You're not going to stop at this guy.
No. And it's too bad. And unfortunately, I think the toughest part of the history and the story in general of Riot is when Reale passed away in 2012, really just as more and people and a whole new generation of fans, or even like I said, generations before, they didn't know him because people were starting to go at that point, right? No one was buying records. Everybody was going back to see, okay, there's nothing great coming out now, but there's so much stuff from the 70s and 80s. And this was one of those albums. And unfortunately, he passed away right as they were getting sort of a renaissance into the band and a resurgence. And that's, he died of Crohn's disease, in 2012. I mean, one of the singer, I forget his name, that was after Guy Speranza that came in. He got killed in a carjacking.
He did, that's right. Do you know what? honestly, full disclosure, I didn't know that. I kind of forgot about it. I read it today and went, fuck,
Sure.
yeah. Unbelievable sad story of this band.
It's a sad story. I mean, it's unfortunate, but at the same time, the greatest thing is really this music will live forever. And like as we were saying, there's they have what's called Riot 5, and that's been the name of the band, and there's been so many different versions. So I guess when Rally died, they started Riot 5. It features one of the vocalists, Todd Michael Hall, I think is
he's pretty good actually. He's a good singer.
He was on The Voice. I remember, Aftershocks. He was interviewed on Aftershocks some years ago. Yeah, and so, but I don't know if they're still going. I don't know, but
they released an album about 2 years ago. It was decent. The single, I heard a single or two was really good. The album then not so strong, but I put it on and listen to. But I don't know what they're doing right now. I haven't kept up, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't really matter. But I used to think to myself, why would you keep the band going when the only member you have from was on their 6th album, the bassist? But we see it a lot, obviously, these days. But I do see why now, because the music's so damn good and people want to hear it. And it's just it's unfortunate. Obviously, they never got their just due, but at least look, everyone out there, you got to check out this record. Check out their first, I would say 5-6 records.
Yeah, just go down the rabbit hole. Even if you need to start at this one and just go back into it, because there's a lot of great songs in there.
Yep. So Riot, Fire Down Under, absolutely a pure classic, 1981 vintage standard for sure. Absolutely.